Today, we are going to talk about a boy who was never supposed to become king. A boy who was laughed at, mocked, and called weak. A boy who could not walk. A prince who was pushed into exile. And yet, that same boy later became the founder of one of the greatest empires in African history, the Mali Empire. But here is what makes his story even more powerful. At the beginning, absolutely no one believed in him. Not even his own people. Even his enemies didn't see him as a threat. So how does a weak boy become a king who changes the destiny of West Africa forever? This is the story of Sundiata Keita, the Lion King of Mali. And it begins not with war, but with a prophecy long before Sundiata was born. Before the Mali Empire even existed, something unusual was said in the court of King Nair Magan Kono. One day, a hunter came to him with a message, a prophecy. He told the king that one day he would meet a woman who did not look special. Not someone people would admire, not someone people would praise, but that woman would give birth to a child who would become one of the greatest kings in history. A child destined to build a powerful empire. The king was shocked, confused. How could something so unlikely become reality? Soon after, he met a woman named Soumaoro Kanté. She was not admired for beauty. In fact, people called her the Buffalo Woman. The Buffalo Woman. But what people saw as weakness, destiny saw differently. The king married her. And shortly after, history changed forever. Soon after, Soumaoro Kanté gave birth to a son, Sundiata Keita. But from the moment he was born, something was different. Something unusual. Sundiata was not like other children. While other children ran, played, and laughed, Sundiata crawled. He could not walk. He could not walk. In the royal palace, whispers began. People mocked him. They mocked his mother. The prophecy was wrong. They said no king can come from this child. And slowly, doubt spread everywhere. But what they did not understand was this. Some destinies take time to stand. And Sundiata's story was only just beginning. Then, everything changed. One day Sundiata saw his mother get insulted and humiliated by the king's first wife. Something inside him snapped. For the first time, anger replaced silence. He demanded something unusual. An iron rod. An iron rod. A child who cannot walk. People laughed out loud. They mocked him again. But Sundiata was serious. Determined. E grabbed Italiano. And with all his strength, he pushed. His arms shook. His body trembled. They mocked him again. His breath heavy. But then, something impossible happened. Sundiata stood up. Silence anten. E walked. Not crawled. Not dragged. E walk. That moment became legend. For it was not merely walking. It was an awakening. But happiness didn't last. Shortly after his father died and the throne was passed to his half-brother Tuman. But power brings fear, and fear creates enemies. Sundiata and his mother were forced into exile. They left the royal palace. They left their home. They left everything. Even his own family began to split apart. His brothers chose distance, not unity. And so, Sundiata walked away from more than a kingdom. He walked away from everything he once knew. They traveled across West Africa until they settled in Mema. And there, something changed. The broken boy began to rebuild himself. He became a hunter, a warrior, a leader. He learned discipline. He learned strategy. He learned survival. And while Sundiata was being forged in exile, a storm was brewing back home. A new ruler emerged, Soumaoro Kanté, and he was feared across West Africa. He conquered lands. He expanded his empire. And according to legend, he was not just a warrior, but a sorcerer. His name alone brought fear. And slowly, he took control of the Mandinka lands. People began to live in fear. Hope disappeared when everything became dark. They remembered the prophecy, and they remembered Sundiata. So they sent messengers across the lands in search of Sundiata. Come back. We need you. And Sundiata returned. Not as the weak boy they mocked, but as their savior. He began uniting the Mandinka clans, one by one, slowly, carefully, until something powerful was formed. The greatest army in the history of Mali. It took months of planning, messengers moving in silence between kingdoms, alliances carefully negotiated, promises made, truth earned, war strategies drawn in the dead of the night, scouts sent ahead to study enemy movements, weaknesses observed. Sundiata knew something most warriors didn't. Strength alone would not be enough. Around 1235, both sides finally met at Kirina. This wasn't just a battle. This was destiny unfolding. Soumaoro's army was fierce and ruthless. But Sundiata brought something greater. Preparation, coordination, unity. And unity is stronger than fear. The clash was brutal. Steel against steel. War cries tearing through the air. A battle shaped not just by power, but by strategy. Every move calculated. Every charge intentional. And then the moment came. Soumaoro Kanté defeated the Soso kingdom. Koyap said, and in that instant, the balance of power in West Africa shifted forever. From the ashes of war, a new empire rose. The Mali Empire. Sundiata, now more than a warrior, took a new title. Mansa Emperor. At Niani, he built his capital. But what he was really building was a system using gold and salt to make Mali rich beyond imagination. But Sundiata's true power was not in gold. It was in what he created. Unity among people who were once divided. Sundiata Keita stood as something rare for his time. A Muslim ruler who refused to force his people to convert. He was nominally Muslim, acceptable to the powerful Arab and traders. Yet he honored the traditional beliefs of the Mandinka people, protected their sacred rights, and ruled as both sultan and spiritual guardian of the land. No forced conversions, no religious wars, just unity under one banner. That tolerance helped build the greatest empire West Africa had ever seen. The Mali Empire wasn't founded on conquest alone. It was built on wisdom. He created the Mandan Charter, a code of laws rooted in justice, in dignity, in human respect, not just rules, but a vision for a better society. Sundiata Keita died around 1255. Some say he drowned. Others say his end was lost to legend. But one thing was never lost: his legacy. Because empires can fall, but what he built endured. His bloodline continued, and from it rose kings who would shake the world. Kings like Mansa Musa, whose wealth would become the stuff of legend. But none of it would exist without him. Because this story was never just about a king. It was about a boy who could not walk. A child who was mocked. Dubcast así de, and yet, planned, prepared, rose. And in doing so, he didn't just win a battle, he changed history forever.